What's up, everybody? In today's video I'm going to show you how to put a Lego motor inside your brand new Hogwarts Express. This is the Hogwarts Express from 2023. If you want to see an unboxing, build, and review of this set, I'll have a link in the description to the video on my channel. You could always motorize the tender, and I'll explain that in a little bit, but myself being a train collector and builder, I had to motorize the locomotive, and I'm going to show you how I did that. And I also made it that you can fit one standing conductor in the cab there, which I'm excited about. All right, the first things first, here are parts you will not be using. These come in the set. These are now the parts that you will be using that you'll need to purchase or find in your collection. The most expensive parts for this will be the battery pack or the hub and the motor. Both of these are still available on lego.com. What I've done though, I've bought the motors for, I think they're $14 to $18. And then the other parts came from my collection, and I pulled a battery pack for this video off of one of my other trains. Right here are components that are partially built from the set. I took them off the locomotive, and then this large chunk of the locomotive here is actually from the set. I pulled parts off, and this is what I'm left with, and this is what I'm going to be adding to add the motor to this set. And right now I'm just going to walk you through that. Hopefully you'll be able to see everything I do here, but overall, one piece at a time, and you'll come up with the solution. The first thing, I put these parts here. It's a 1x2 brick, a modified 1x2 brick there with the studs, that Technique connector, and then this lift arm piece that was on the train set, and that'll hold our front wheels when we get there. The next thing I'm doing here is I'm not attaching the motor yet. I'm actually just putting the cable there and running the cable through these other parts. That way it goes up and in, and then it comes out the furnace of the locomotive. There is an actual empty cavity in this set, and I'm actually just feeding this wire in to get it out of the way. That way I don't have a bunch of wire dangling around. Then I'm going to take these 1x10 plates and put them here. Notice where they're being placed on the other blue 1x4 plates there, or the aqua, whatever color that is. Now I'm taking these parts. These were actually components that were on the train set that I took off, and this is what I'm left with. I'm adding these here. Notice they have the stud on the top of them, and that stud fits perfectly in between that new plate that I put on and the other plates that were on there. Then I take this inverted slope piece. This will be for our bottom cab. I put two 1x2 plates on each side, or one on each side, two plates combined. I take this 1x4 plate, I put those cheese slopes on it, and this is for our furnace. As you see, the cable comes through there. And now I'm just going to keep adding other parts, structural parts, and there is no real great order for this. This is kind of how I put it back together. This is all from memory, and I just wanted to make sure I put it back together properly. That way you can see how I kind of did this. With these wheels, you always want to put these center ones on first and the larger ones on second, because the larger ones have the flange, or they're a larger wheel that need to go on second. Then for these parts, these currently come in white and light bluish gray. I only have them in white, and that's why I put them here, but the light bluish gray might look better, and if they come out with these in black at some point, that'd be good. But that white Technic axle pin piece there, it's frictionless, and that's a very important part. You want to make sure it's frictionless. That way you can have one that will roll and rotate. It won't be friction fit and tight. Then we add these Technic bricks, and then we add our gear. And this is, the gear is only on one side, and the wheel is only driven on one side. You can always try and have one combined axle, but for this case I wanted to do just one driving wheel. Then we add this plate here, and now I add my 1x4 bricks, and now I can connect the motor in because this is the correct location for it. I could have done this earlier, but this is kind of the method I did for this, and the just the process and the sequence, I guess. Make sure to add your gear in there onto the motor before you add the wheel piece we just created. Now when you attach this wheel piece, those gears should line up properly, and they'll be connected. Make sure you put the rubber band on that driving wheel as well. You could buy 4 of these, but you really only need rubber bands on any of the wheels that are driven for the friction along the train track. Now I'm just making the other side of this wheel piece. It's essentially the same process, but instead of having a gear, I'm simply having a Technic bush piece there, as you'll see in a moment, in red, that just holds everything together. Now I attach that to this side, and shortly we're going to be done with this locomotive, and I think it looks pretty good. I'm actually using that 1x9 lift arm there in the center to hold that center wheel on. There might be a better method, but for the case of actually adding this motor to this very small locomotive, that's the design I came up with to hold everything together. And I think it works well, and I think it looks pretty good. I'm happy with it. And, let me know what you think in the comments. What would you have done differently? Or if you have a better solution, let me know. Now I'm going to be adding the final touches here. I add the coupler, that brick, 2x4 plate, Now these parts, you can use anything here, but I'm using what came with the set to limit the parts you have to buy or add to this. And now I'm adding these on. These also came with the set. I added those studs there to them to fill in a void, but you really don't need those studs. And now I'm just going to connect the front wheels, make sure it rotates, and then boom, this locomotive is now complete. And I'll move on to the tender. And the thumbnail said there'd be more. In this set, I wasn't happy that it could not fit a conductor standing up, and I wanted to change that, and I did. And now we have our conductor standing there, and the wire goes right around him. Now with the tender, it's simply going to be our battery box holder. The battery box is quite high, or the hub, whatever you want to call it. I call it a battery box. Anyway, it is taller, and you do have to add some red bricks here. You can really do anything here. You could add black bricks, you could add the red like I have, but essentially I'm just building 2 of these. I'm not really sure which ones I added for this, but overall it's just a few red bricks. I added 2 1x1 red plates, I know for sure, and I just used the rest of the parts to kind of fill it in. You could again orient these whichever way possible. The way I oriented it right now, I'm actually going to flip that around in a moment. I added a 1x4 plate and then that panel piece, just to kind of cover up as much of that battery pack as possible, but I don't want to cover up that where the light is. Now I'm just using some of these black parts to really just fill in the rest of this and kind of just make it look like an actual coal tender. Then this piece, you do put it on the top. First I click and make sure I'm connected. Once I'm connected, I can set this plate on top. There's definitely a better solution here, but since this came in the set and it fit perfectly on top of this box, I just put it there, and it doesn't cover up the light, which I think is good. Now I connect the locomotive and the tender, plug everything in, and we're pretty much ready to go. You can connect to your passenger wagons as well, and then your train's ready to drive. And that is essentially how I motorized the locomotive. I think it's a great solution. The only downsides are it has 1 speed, and you could probably only haul up to 4 or 5 passenger wagons. I'll put that to the test eventually. If you really wanted to have a train with variable speeds, I'd recommend motorizing the tender, putting a train motor on there as well as the battery pack. It would be much taller than it is now, but it's possible. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. Please subscribe to see more LEGO train content, and let me know what you want to see next in the comments.
Lego, my Jameso.